I had just come down the stairs to grab my reading glasses when I heard Caleb's voice, loud, casual, too familiar. "Use Mom's card. She's got about $150 on it," he said. I stopped cold, one foot on the landing, the other hanging midair. From where I stood, I could see them clearly. Caleb, lounging on the couch. Sloane perched beside him, legs tucked neatly under her, her phone already open. She took the card from him without hesitation. "Designer drop tomorrow?" She grinned, swiping through photos. Perfect timing. The room filled with the soft sounds of scrolling and plans made with my money. Caleb leaned over to look at her screen. They didn't see me. Or maybe they did and didn't care. I backed up slowly, silent against the wood floor, and returned to my room. I closed the door behind me without a sound and sat on the edge of my bed. My hands were steady, but something inside me shifted. This wasn't the first time I'd felt unseen. There had been dinners where they talked over me, vacations I learned about after they returned. But this was different. This was mine, my money, my life's work. And they passed it between them, like it belonged to the household. I opened the drawer in my nightstand and pulled out the small leather notebook I used to track expenses. I flipped past lists of groceries and utility payments and found the page I'd marked when I moved in here 18 months ago. $90,000 transferred. Down payment support. Verbal agreement cohabitation. No rent. Shared space. I stared at the handwriting for a long time before closing the book. They hadn't asked. They hadn't warned me. They simply took. Downstairs, I heard Sloane laughing. Then the sound of the fridge opening. Glass clinking. Celebration. I walked to my window and opened it just slightly. The evening air was cool against my cheek. I needed to think. To act. But not tonight. Tonight I'd just remember. The password to my bank account came back to me like a reflex. The smell of toast drifted from the kitchen as I poured the coffee 3 mugs as usual. Mine first, then Caleb's, then Sloane's. She was already at the table phone, propped up against the butter dish, tapping away with those long, manicured nails. "By the way," she said, without looking up, "thanks for the card." I paused mid-pour. Caleb was across from her, scrolling through his own phone, nodding absently, like this was all perfectly normal. "You're welcome," I said quietly, though the words tasted wrong. They moved on as if the card was always meant to be theirs. Paris came up next. Hotels, flights, restaurants. Sloane wanted one of those rooms with a balcony view of the Eiffel Tower. Caleb wanted to book the first-class seats before prices jumped. "We need a break," Sloane said, yawning. "Work has been brutal, and Mom can hold down the house." I stirred cream into my mug and took a sip. The chair beneath me suddenly felt unfamiliar. My hands rested on the table, but the rest of me felt adrift. "Sounds nice," I murmured. Neither of them replied. I waited a few minutes longer just to finish my coffee. Then I stood, tucked in my chair, and wished them both a good day. They responded in fragments, half-hearted, distracted. Upstairs, I sat at my desk. The banking app opened easily. I'd always kept things organized. The balance blinked at me, steady and full for now. Scrolling through the recent activity, I saw a few pending charges from stores I didn't recognize. Fashion labels, travel agencies, airport lounges. I clicked into the security tab. One option stood out in blue freeze card. I didn't press it. Not yet. But I hovered over it long enough to memorize where it sat. Then I opened a second tab. Property records for the house. Our house. Their names. And mine. Still there. Still valid. I pulled open my desk drawer and reached for a pen. The house was quiet, except for the occasional muffled laughter from downstairs. I sat on the edge of my bed, the laptop open in front of me. The glow from the screen illuminated the list of transactions lines of numbers and merchant names that meant nothing to me but everything to them. There it was. A pre-authorization for $91,000. luxury retailer. I stared at it for a long time, then moved my cursor over the freeze card button. My finger hovered above the trackpad for a beat longer than necessary. Then I clicked. The screen refreshed. Card frozen. No confirmation call. No second guess. Just silence. I closed the browser, pushed the laptop aside, and got up. My knees ached slightly as I moved to the closet and opened the lower drawer. Behind a stack of winter scarves was the filing box I hadn't touched in over a year. Inside was everything that still belonged to me. I pulled out the deed, the original copy, folded neatly, slightly yellowed at the edges. My name, Caleb's name. No one could pretend I was just a guest. I took a yellow folder from the desk drawer, slipped the deed inside, and labeled it in clean black ink, active. Outside my door, the sound of wine glasses clinking together carried up the stairs. I could hear Sloane giggling at something, probably a meme or video, something meant to distract and fill space. Caleb's voice murmured in response. I sat back down, letting the folder rest on my lap. They could toast to their plans, laugh about their purchases, and talk about the future they were funding with my name. But I was done being the invisible sponsor. I placed the folder in the center of my desk, a quiet declaration. Then I turned off the light, settled beneath the quilt, and lay awake for hours, not restless, just alert. In the morning, I would begin the rest of it. The call came just after 3. I had just finished folding a small basket of laundry when the screen lit up with Caleb's name. I let it ring once, twice, then answered. "Mom," he snapped. "Why is your card frozen?" In the background, I could hear Sloane's voice climbing in pitch. "They said it was flagged, right at the register. Do you know how humiliating that was?" I sat down on the edge of the bed, calm. "It's my account," I said. And no one asked me. There was a beat of silence. Then they both spoke at once. Caleb accused me of making a scene, of creating unnecessary drama. Sloane, still loud in the background, claimed the cashier had looked at her like she was a thief. She was treating me like I stole it. I had to leave the bags. All of it. Do you know what people think when a card gets declined like that? I didn't raise my voice. "I didn't authorize those purchases," I said. "That's all." Caleb groaned. "Come on, Mom. You live here. You don't pay rent. We're just trying to enjoy ourselves. Is that such a big deal?" I let them speak. Let the outrage spill over until the words started circling themselves. Then I hung up. No anger, no ceremony, just a click. I stared at the folded laundry for a long moment before turning to my laptop. I opened Zillow and typed in a zip code I hadn't lived in since my 30s. The listings were small, modest, but clean. Some with balconies, some near grocery stores. I bookmarked one with light hardwood floors and a corner kitchen. Just looking at it made me feel lighter. I picked up the pen beside me and wrote the number down, then circled it. The notebook was still open beside the folder on my desk. I added a line beneath my original down payment note, "Next move mine." I moved slowly through the house that afternoon, running my hand along the banister I had helped polish the day they moved in. The walls were painted warmer tones, now Sloane's preference. My framed pictures had been replaced months ago with her abstract prints and travel quotes in scripted fonts. I walked past the kitchen where the coffee maker I'd brought from my condo still sat used daily without a second thought. When they were scraping for a down payment, my $90,000 had been the difference. I remembered the exact words Caleb had said when I transferred the money. "We'll build a future together, Mom. You'll always have a place here." Now I had a place. A corner, to be exact. I stopped at the door to the guest room, my room. The bed was neatly made, the dresser mostly empty. No lamp on the nightstand, just a coaster and a box of tissues. No art on the walls. No signs of a person living, only staying. I sat on the edge of the mattress and opened my laptop. I pulled up the county property records site and typed in the address. The document loaded quickly. There it was. My name alongside Caleb's listed as co-owner. Not secondary, not honorary, equal. I exhaled not out of relief but confirmation. They could pretend this house belonged only to them. They could speak over me at dinner, leave me off travel plans, treat my money like a shared account. But facts didn't ask permission to exist. I minimized the browser and opened a clean document. I started typing a list. Review deed, speak with Joan, estimate moving costs, storage quotes. I stared at the blinking cursor for a few seconds, then saved the file as transition notes. Downstairs, I heard the front door open and close. Sloane's heels tapped against the tile. I closed the laptop gently and reached for my phone. Joan answered on the second ring, her voice steady and warm, like always. I need to prepare a formal exit, I told her. She didn't ask questions, just told me to meet her at the diner off Henderson by noon. We chose the booth in the back, the one we used to sit at when taxes were due and numbers didn't add up. She had a folder already waiting for me, thick and neatly clipped. Bank statements, title, history, your original transfer receipt, and copies of every co-ownership form you signed, she said, sliding it over. They may have forgotten the paperwork. I haven't. I opened the folder. My name appeared again and again in black and white. It was a strange comfort seeing the evidence stacked up. Not memories, not favors, facts. Joan sipped her tea and leaned back. If they want war, you have every right to defend peace. I'm not looking for war, I said. She nodded. But you are done letting people rewrite your part of the story. Inside the folder was an affidavit, a simple statement outlining my contributions and rights. No accusations, no threats, just clarity. I read it twice before signing. I'm not suing, I said more to myself than to her. I'm just reclaiming space. Exactly, Joan replied. No court, no drama, just boundaries. We sat for a while, finishing lunch in silence. She handed me a flash drive with digital copies and her notary seal stamped across the envelope. Back in my car, I placed everything carefully in the yellow folder, marked active. I glanced at the clock. Caleb and Sloane wouldn't be home until 6. That gave me time. At a stoplight, I opened the email from the leasing office. The apartment I bookmarked was still available. Rent reasonable, close to the market. I started filling out the application. They left the house around 11. I watched from the kitchen window as Sloane adjusted her sunglasses and Caleb locked the car. The engine faded down the street, and the silence that followed felt cleaner than any air I'd breathed in years. I took a slow breath, then opened the hall closet. The first box was waiting half filled with sweaters, a framed photo of my parents, and a few notebooks. I started adding more. Books, folders, the kettle from my condo I'd never stopped using. I moved methodically, no rush, no hesitation. Every drawer opened, every object weighed keep or leave. By mid-afternoon, the guest room looked almost bare. The faint indent in the carpet was the only sign the dresser had ever stood there. I paused to call the leasing office. The woman on the other end recognized my name immediately. Still available, she said. I'll take it, I replied. First month paid in full. She offered to email the contract. I confirmed the details and hung up, feeling something steady settle in my chest. Next, I booked the moving van. The man who answered sounded half asleep, but confirmed the morning slot for Friday. Just a few boxes and small furniture, I said. He laughed softly. Sounds like you're traveling light. I smiled to myself. You could say that. By sunset, half my belongings were taped shut and labeled. The rest, things too big or meaningless to bring, would stay behind. I set my house key in a small glass dish by the door. It looked fragile, misplaced, like it belonged to someone else now. Then I placed the envelope beside it, sealed, and marked in careful handwriting, "Clarification, not revenge." The last thing I packed was the yellow folder from my desk, the one Joan had helped me prepare. I slid it into my bag and zipped it closed. The house was still almost gracious in its quiet. I turned off the lights one by one and walked upstairs, ready to wait out the night until morning came. The knock came harder than it needed to. Sharp, impatient. I didn't rush to open the door. I had already made tea, and I placed the cup gently on the counter before walking across the small apartment. I unlocked the door, then opened it just wide enough to see his face. Caleb looked like he hadn't slept. His jaw was tight, his eyes flared. He didn't say hello. I waited. He stepped closer. "We needed that money. You live with us for free, remember? We've carried you." I stepped back, picked up the folder from the table and returned to the door. I held it out to him. "Here's the $90,000 I gave you." I said, calm as ever. "Here are the months I split the utility bills, the grocery lists I paid for, the repairs I covered when the plumbing backed up, and the cost of keeping my mouth shut while your wife treated me like I was in the way." He took the folder, but didn't open it, just stared at the cover. "Mom?" I didn't let him finish. "Look at the numbers. I've more than paid for the space I occupied." He opened the folder slowly, flipping through the sheets. His mouth opened once, then closed. No words came. "You never asked," I added. "You just took." I stopped giving. The silence stretched. For a second, he looked like the boy I used to know, stunned, unsure, ashamed. But the moment passed. His jaw tightened again. He turned without another word. I watched him walk down the hallway until he disappeared behind the stairwell. Then I closed the door and locked it. The tea had gone cold, but I didn't mind. I poured it out, rinsed the cup, and placed it on the drying rack. The sun was beginning to shift through the blinds, drawing soft lines across the tile as I picked up my bag and checked the time. The apartment is smaller than the house, but nothing here echoes. The silence is different, less hollow, more mine. I arranged the books first, then the framed photos, my parents on their wedding day, a candid of Caleb at 6, a picture of my old dog Max looking straight into the lens like he understood something. We didn't. A small plant now sits on the windowsill. I water it every other day. It's already leaning toward the light. The kitchen fits one person at a time, but that's enough. I know where everything is. No one moves my mugs. No one leaves empty cartons in the fridge. Last week, I walked down to the community center and signed up for a beginner's watercolor class. The woman at the front desk asked if I'd painted before. I told her I hadn't, but I was ready to try something that wasn't useful, just beautiful. Joan stops by most Thursdays with takeout and good gossip. We eat cross-legged on the couch like teenagers. She brings extra napkins and never asks how I'm holding up unless I bring it up first. Tonight, she brought Thai food. We ate quietly for a while. Then she looked over her glass of tea and asked, "Any regrets?" I thought about it longer than she expected. "Just one," I said finally. "I should have frozen more than just the card." She smiled at that. No judgment, just understanding. "I know," she said, "but you froze it in time. We didn't talk about Caleb or Sloan." I hadn't heard from either of them since the knock. It wasn't absence I felt. It was space. When she left, I stood at the door and watched her taillights fade from the lot. Then I went back inside, rinsed the dishes, and opened my sketch pad. The lines I drew weren't perfect, but they were mine. I added color slowly, thinking of the apartment, the quiet, the window light, and the way the plant kept leaning forward no matter where I set it. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, tucked between a utility bill and a grocery flyer. No return address, no name on the front, just my own, written in slanted block letters. I knew the handwriting before I opened it. Inside was a single sheet, folded twice. "Mom, I was wrong." We were wrong. I see that now. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I wanted to say it anyway. We didn't mean to push you out. It wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. I sat at the kitchen table and read it twice. Then I folded it back the way it came, walked to my bedroom, and slid it into the back of the drawer where I kept old tax returns and warranty slips. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. It was just a letter. A late one. Some things don't need answering. Outside, the light was still soft. Morning air drifted through the cracked window, and somewhere in the distance, I heard the hiss of a bus stopping at the corner. I finished my tea, rinsed the cup, and grabbed my sketchbook from the basket by the door. It was nearly full now. Pages of uneven color lines that started firm and then wavered, water bleeding gently into paper. I locked the door behind me and made my way down the front steps. The street was quiet. A man across the way swept his porch. A woman with a stroller paused to adjust her child's hat. I nodded as I passed. At the bus stop, I sat on the bench, sketchbook in my lap. My fingers rested lightly on the cover. The bus arrived on time. I climbed aboard, found a seat near the window, and leaned into the rhythm of the road as we pulled away.